Hi, in this video we're going to take a quick look at turning a form into a quiz and controlling how marks are ascribed within that quiz. So to begin with, we have a form here which has been created, and we have a series of simple questions. We've got multiple choice, we have a checkbox option here, or at least it will be when we change it to one. We have a multiple choice grid. We have a short answer, and we also have where we could have a paragraph response. So just a couple of sample types of questions. Now, if this is currently set up as a form, the first thing we need to do is go to settings, and you'll see the first option that we have at the top here is make this a quiz. And when we make it a quiz, a new range of options are opened up to us here. So the first one, locked mode, allows us to make the quiz lock down a Chromebook that it's being completed on, and that stops the person completing it from viewing any other websites or navigating away. And if they do close it midway through completing it, it will send you a notification to your Gmail account to let you know. So that's quite good for tests. Now, that will only work on a Chromebook, just be aware of that. We also have some options here for the quiz in terms of whether we want people to be able to see questions that were answered incorrectly, the correct answers, point values, and so on. I would usually just leave them as they are. And then there are some other information in here, like, for example, collecting email addresses, restricting it to users installing council education, and so on. Normally, I would leave that on, but I'm going to turn it off here because I want to be able to complete it a few times myself just to show you an example of how the marking would look later on. And I'm going to leave it limited to, well, not limited to one response, again, for the same reason. Ordinarily, that would be different though. There are some other options that are quite important. The first one is probably the releasing marks part. I would say always change that to later after manual review, unless every single one of your questions is a multiple choice, because otherwise the form won't always be able to correctly mark, for example, paragraph or short answer responses. So now that we've turned this into a quiz, we need to ascribe some point values. Now you'll also notice down at the bottom we have form defaults. And if we go into here, we can choose some choices about new questions, like whether we want all the questions to be required by default. I'm going to leave that off so that somebody can skip a question if we want them to, but you could change that to make sure it was required if it was something that you wanted to do. And you can see that we can have a default question point value, and we've left that at 1. So going back to our questions, when we actually click on the question itself, you'll see that we now have an option for an answer key, and this simply allows us to choose how many points are available. So this is a 1-point question, and the correct answer is yellow. So if we tick that, we see that that's now marked as the correct response, and it will gain a single mark. We'll talk more about how we add answer feedback later. So if we go back through and have a look at the others again, this is a checkbox question, so there are actually 2 answers here that are acceptable as being a vehicle. So in this question, I just had to reload because for some reason the answer key option wasn't coming up. So I just refreshed the page and that's brought it up. So if you ever have that issue, just give it a wee refresh and you should see it appear. So we can see that we've got 2 items here which are vehicles, and so we wouldn't want it to be a single point in our answer key. So we'd want to say that actually there's 2 points available here, and we'd want to specify that this option and this option are both correct, and then say we're done. And likewise, go through these other questions. For example, this is a multiple choice grid. So if you go to the answer key, it's a series of mathematical questions. It's already picked up because there are 6 rows. It knows that each of them is going to be worth a point. If it had more than one possible answer, we could specify that, but it doesn't. So I'll just pause while I quickly fill these in and come back to you. So you can see that we've now just clicked on each of the correct answers that would be entered by a person to get a point. We can mark that as done. Go down here, this piece of recording equipment is a microphone. So in the answer key, one of the options or one of the things that will expect us to add is what the correct answer is. And now bear in mind that this is case sensitive. So if you want it to correctly mark, you may need to put 2 versions of the term in with upper and lowercase. But you'll also need to be aware that the form will not automatically correctly mark misspelled answers. So you do need to review this yourself. And that's where you can choose to mark all other answers incorrect. And in this question here, The question itself may actually be a multiple mark question. So it was a 4-mark question, so we could just say done here, and that would mean that when marking the actual answer, we'd need to look for 4 marks and then just actually assign them. So that's us now provided this form as a quiz. And if we share it with people, we can then come in and we can mark that to ascribe points to our pupils and so on. It's all quite easily done and quite automated.